Both Brent Scowcroft and I advocate, first of all, a bipartisan foreign policy. I think it's important to return to bipartisanship. In the last 8 years, we have become polarized, and we have adopted some policies which reflect extreme attitudes, but not the fundamental outlook of the American people. Secondly, I think we have to recognize the fact that though America is obviously preeminent in the world, and even the financial crisis bears that out in a negative sort of a way, it is essential for America to consult others, to shape policies in a dialogue with others, and to abstain from unilateral actions, because the world today is too complex, and American power is not omnipotence, and hence we have to be willing to lead by consensus, by accommodation, through a dialogue. I sense that Obama understands what is essentially new about the 21st century. I am convinced, unfortunately, that McCain is rooted entirely in the preceding century. First of all, I have been writing on this subject now for several years because the war on terror was declared 7 years ago. And within weeks of that declaration, I pointed out that the term war on terror is meaningless. Terror is a technique for killing people. It's not an enemy. It's like if we defined World War II as a war on blitzkrieg. We have to be specific who are we against. And there are terrorist groups, organizations, extremists, and they need to be both isolated and extirpated. But a vague, generalized phrase such as war on terror is, first of all, not helpful in identifying whom to fight. And secondly, it is conducive to breeding fear. And there's nothing worse in a democracy than fear, because fear makes the public susceptible to demagogy. No, I don't think there's a threat of a return to the Cold War, because first of all, nobody wants it. Secondly, Russia cannot pursue it. The Cold War was a global contest between two superpowers, one of which, incidentally, was promoting an allegedly worldwide relevant ideology, which it turned out not to be so relevant. Russia today is essentially a Eurasian power, and even more so, partially a European power. It is, however, challenging the status quo that has emerged after the fall of the Soviet Union. It would like to reintegrate the former Soviet republics under Moscow in some disguised fashion. And this is why the independence of Georgia and of Ukraine is important to the West. But it is not an issue for the resumption of a Cold War. It's an issue that can be addressed partially by economic assistance, some military security, negotiations, while at the same time trying to foster closer links with Russia and trying to draw it more into the West. I think one of the lessons, incidentally, and that's an important point, of the recent financial crisis is that there are now elements in Russia itself that are painfully aware. They've learned in the last few weeks how painfully aware they are of Russia's own interdependence with the world. And that has certain implications for how it conducts itself.